I believe I was on the first grade when I first saw Pokémon the first movie Mewtwo Strikes Back. A small, wide-eyed little boy who had just started school. Fast forward 20 years and here I am as an adult. An adult who has graduated with 3 diplomas after high school, has a stable job, lives on his own, and has seen the remake movie that is Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. And I thought waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3 was a long time coming. Wow. Now, considering how I'll be talking about a remake to a 20-year-old movie, I don't really know if I should make a spoiler warning for those of you who haven't seen either versions. But still, I'll be talking about the comparative factors in both movies, so I will be spoiling both movies in this video. If you have been living under a rock and haven't seen the first movie that came out 20 years ago at any point during the last 2 decades, this is me clapping my hands to you. I don't know if you did it, but go find it online or somewhere else on YouTube. The remake is on Netflix, so you can see that there. And after you have seen both movies, you can come back. Or just ignore what I just said and focus on what I say next. I will be talking about this movie with the assumption that you have seen the original movie from 1999 and know what Pokemon is. Both Pokémon the first movie and Mewtwo Strikes Back's Evolution are directed by Kunihiko Uayama, while the remake is also co-directed with him by Monotori Sakakibara, or based on Takeshi Shudo's screenplay. The first noticeable change in the remake, after the absence of Pikachu's vacation shot that was shown in the original movie before its main story began, is that the entire movie is made from three-dimensional computer graphic in technology, aka 3D CGI for short. That would make this movie the second non-anime Pokemon movie after last year's Pokemon Detective Pikachu. But story-wise, the very first change made from the original movie is the moment when Mewtwo first wakes up to reality and actually has a short exchange in dialogue with Dr. Fuji and his colleagues who have created it. However, while they do answer to some of Mewtwo's questions about its creation and existence, they quickly begin to ignore it and other questions it has. This treatment is what causes Mewtwo to cause the destruction of the laboratory that caused where it was created in, instead of any hastily causing the destruction upon its awakening in the first original movie. Also, yes, I do know about the deleted scene in the original Japanese version of the first movie, where the daughter of Dr. Fuji has some talk with Mewtwo growing up in the tank, and that also builds up to Mewtwo's motivations for hating humans. Also, to get this out of the way, I need to point out that Mewtwo is a genderless Pokemon and because of that I will be referring to it as an it. And as a quick summary of Mewtwo as a character, imagine if a bunch of scientists were to discover the DNA of Jesus Christ and then were to Jurassic Park him back to life. This would not be the Jesus who died for our sins, but a clone who has done none of the things that Jesus did, and then learns of what kind of world and people his genetic template has died for. Couple that with all the powers that the real Jesus is supposed to have, and finish that off with the psychology of why do I exist, and we have Mewtwo. And with the Jesus metaphor that I just used, after Arceus, the confirmed god Pokemon of the Pokemon world, Mew, the Pokemon from which Mewtwo has been cloned from, has been by some fans been nicknamed as the Jesus equivalent of Pokemon world. And I don't know if the Pokemon lore has been expanded since then to disprove this or has created another Pokemon to replace Mew with this status. The second change is a small one, but not the fault of the movie, regarding the voice cast. Around 2005 and 2006, the Pokemon Company took more power over how their properties were presented outside of Japan, and that included the dubbing of the anime. For reasons I can't explain, the English dub changed voice actors for the characters, and that is why the main characters are not voiced by the same people. In Ash's, Brock's, and Team Rocket's case, I don't really mind this as I have gotten used to it during the years since then. But considering how Misty had left the traveling group when the change happened, her having a distinctly different voice actor is a little disturbing. The overall setting of both movies also points out a flaw with both, with the remake being stronger in it. The original movie was, at the time it came out, set during the anime's Indigo League arc, especially after Ash had managed to collect all the Kanto gym badges and was in the middle of training or slacking off before the Pokemon League. Because of this, when you see him, Brock, and Misty for the first time, you should be able to know where they are in the story if you have been watching the anime. You can assume the same with the 3D remake, but otherwise, all the setup you have is the vague narration when our heroes are introduced, while the Team Rocket is there just because the fans know them and why they are there. However, the change of having Team Rocket offer Ash and his friends a ride to New Island was one of my favorite moments in the 3D remake. In the original movie, they were disguised, something Team Rocket is known to do, as Vikings with a canoe rowboat, and Ash being the dummy he is, he assumes that the Vikings are from Minnesota, a state from a country that does not exist in the Pokemon world. In the 3D remake, Jesse, James, and Meowth were disguised as sailors and sailing on a Lapras pedal boat. Seeing this change brought a genuine smile to my face with an amused laughter, knowing that Yuiyama, Sakikabara, and Shudo had decided to change this as a response to a bunch of jokes made from the original disguises. And speaking of responses, Yuya Sakikabara and Shudo also fixed the memed ending that can be best described with an imitation of the veteran YouTuber Linkara, not like this. And at this point, if you still have not seen either the first movie or the remake, go watch either of them and then come back because I'm going to go into spoiler territory now. In Pokemon the first movie, Mewtwo invites Ash and his friends, as well as other Pokemon trainers, to his lair on New Island under false pretenses of coming to challenge the most powerful Pokemon trainer in the world, or just the Kanto region if you ask me. Besides our heroes, the only other trainers who make it there through the storm Mewtwo caused, and they set their fully evolved starter Pokemon of Blastoise, Venusaur, and Ash's Charizard against clones that Mewtwo claims to have trained from their earliest forms. The clones defeat the originals, which gives Mewtwo the excuse to take all the Pokemon Ash and the others have brought with them to be cloned and possibly be killed off because Mewtwo sees them as traitors for serving humans. Thanks to Ash fighting to save his Pokemon, all the Pokemon taken by Mewtwo are saved from their grim fates and they set to face off against their clones. When Mew eventually comes to confront Mewtwo, having been shown to be around here and there as the plot progressed, Mew essentially tells Mewtwo that the clones are soulless, color swap rip-offs compared to the originals that have the true strength of purpose by existing first. This triggers Mewtwo to use his psychic powers to turn all the Pokemon, the clones and the originals, into normal types that can only use physical attacks. This causes all the Pokemon to start fighting their doppelgangers as violently and brutally as they can, drawing blood and pretty much fighting themselves to the death. In the original movie, the onlooking Pokemon trainers reacted to what they saw with Pokemon are not meant to fight, not like this. Back in 1999, and after, this line of dialogue has gained its share and more of negative criticism when the very pitch and concept of Pokemon circles around catching them and having them fight each other, as seen by outside onlookers and casual players of the game series who don't even pay attention to what it really is about. Before I go over how this has been changed in the remake, let me go over something that I have not heard anyone else talk about. Pokemon are not meant to fight each other violently to the death in Pokemon battles any more than boxers, fencers, and martial artists are meant to fight each other violently to the death in the modern world's boxing matches, fencing contests, or martial arts tournaments. Pokemon trainers are called trainers as they train the Pokemon they catch and make them stronger, more durable, and having them learn special attacks that can be used strategically to immobilize their opponents to status effects like paralysis, frozen, burn, sleep, poison, confusion, and through that, wear them down and end the fight by being the last one standing. To quote one of the most famous underdogs in the cinematic history, it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. And that is what Pokemon training is based on. The trainers do not force Pokemon to fight each other. They do the same thing that boxing trainers, fencing coaches, and martial arts trainers do to their students. They train, they coach, and they teach those Pokemon. You teach me, and I teach you Pokemon. That's the relationship between Pokemon and the trainer from the anime's original opening in theme song. Ash Ketchum is a prime example of a relationship like this, especially with his Charizard, who didn't listen to him for the latter half of the Indigo League arc after it evolved from a Charmander to a Charmeleon and then to a Charizard. This disobedience continued up to the first third of the Orange Island arc until they both learned to respect each other by learning from each other. My point is that Pokemon training is, as a sport, much like boxing, fencing, and martial arts, and maybe even baseball, football, and basketball. All of them have athletes and players that need to be trained into the best versions of themselves to be successful in their respective sports when playing the game. Also, it has not been clear from the game's standpoint, as you fight almost everyone you come across, that official Pokemon matches they do have referees who can and will call the battle off if it goes too violent, while the trainers have the responsibility to throw in the towel when they realize that they are losing. And that is what brings us back to the change made in the 3D remake. Pokemon battles are not meant to be fight to the death. They are meant to wear down your opponent while still managing to keep yourself as the last one standing. That is what the onlooking trainers meant when they said Pokemon are not meant to fight, not like this. This is why the 3D remake changes this line of dialogue to a more direct acknowledgement that all the fighting Pokemon, the clones and the originals, are living beings that are trying to kill each other. If you are capable of feeling empathy and putting yourself into the shoes of the human characters, you should be feeling uncomfortable seeing these Pokemon fighting to the death the hardest way they can with their special moves removed. No one should be fighting to the death in the name of the game or for the entertainment of the onlookers. Pokemon fight to see which one is stronger, to see how they compare to each other, and how much they would need to train themselves to become as strong or stronger than their opponents, either by themselves or with the help of a Pokemon trainer, but ultimately, just like humans, through hard work. This is why having the clones and the originals fight with just physical attacks is seen disturbing to the trainers. Seeing their Pokemon beaten and getting weaker from fighting should feel disturbing to them because they can't recall them or call off the fight. There is nothing they can do, and the only one who then does do anything is Ash by going in between Mewtwo and Mew's fighting and catching himself in their crossfire, turning to the stone by the effect of their attacks. And just like in the original movie, what makes this scene sad is that Pikachu is sad and crying in it, and the silence. And from this point on, both movies are essentially the same. Minor differences are still some lines in dialogue and less 90s pop music in the end credits. From an author's perspective, I would call Mewtwo Strikes Back's evolution to be a rewrite, where the people who made the original went back to it and saw the flaws left in it. Flaws such as the not like this line and how one trainer at Mewtwo's Island called his Pidgeot a Pidgeotto, that they decided to fix with the remake that looks amazing after you have gotten used to the 3D visuals. looking at my older videos from 2 years ago that I have begun to remake by now, I can't fault Kunihiko Iiyama and Takeshi Shudo for what they have done here. Before I end this video, I want to address a few nitpicks that I have. See, because Mewtwo Strikes Back's evolution is a remake of the first Pokemon movie from 20 years ago, it does feel kind of dated when the characters in it pretend that the Kanto region is the entire world without acknowledging the Yoto region located right next to it in the west. I could buy that Mewtwo couldn't find the legendary birds from their hiding places in Kanto or the legendary beasts in Yoto because they are roaming legendaries on the move. Also, Lugia is probably under the sea in the Whirl Islands, and Ho does not spend all of its time roosting on the top of the bell tower in Ecruteak City. But Mewtwo should have probably been able to sense another psychic Pokemon like it. Otherwise, Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution is a remake worth watching. Unlike with what modern Hollywood has been factory lining out to us in these last few years, it stays close to the original as a good comparison, where you can watch and enjoy both without fighting over which one is better. And now, may your heart be your guiding key.